We're going to talk to you next about the heroin epidemic. And ladies and gentlemen, please understand, there is a heroin epidemic right here in our backyard. Heroin abuse has increased both nationwide and right here in our backyard in Central Florida. Last year alone, Orange and Osceola counties led the state of Florida with 90 heroin-related deaths. And this year, that number is on the path of increasing. We're probably already past it. The Orange County Sheriff's Office, the Orange County Drug-Free Office, and our Orange County leaders have recently created a task force to fight the heroin epidemic in our community. Public awareness, education, and criminal enforcement are the keys to successfully combating this community issue, and it is all of our issue. The speakers today will both educate and provide insight to the heroin epidemic. Our first speaker on this topic is Lieutenant Mike Rozier of the Orange County Sheriff's Office Narcotics Unit. Lieutenant Mike Rozier has been employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office for 28 years and is currently assigned to the narcotics section of the Criminal Investigation Division. Lieutenant Rozier has had a diverse career within the Orange County Sheriff's Office to include assignments in the Uniform Patrol Division, Court Security, Gang Suppression Unit as well. He was a member of the SWAT team for 21 years, where he held the position of team leader and counter sniper. Lieutenant Rozier has a bachelor's degree from the University of Central Florida and is a graduate of the Southern Police Institute. The second speaker, who will come right after Lieutenant Rozier, is Director Carol Burkett of the Orange County Drug-Free Office. Here's information on Carol. She has worked in state and local government for over 20 years. She was appointed by the Board of County Commissioners as the director of the Orange County Drug-Free Office in 2005. Carol and her staff work with community leaders in over 100 agencies that serve on 8 working committees which provide expertise in the area of prevention, enforcement, healthcare, and treatment. She's making me smile. Hi, Carol. Carol and her office has coordinated and worked with task force members on implementation of recommendations for the Orange County Methamphetamine Task Force, the Orange County Underage Drinking Task Force, and Mayor Jacobs' Prescription Drug Task Force. She is currently working with task force members on the Orange County Heroin Task Force. She's busy. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome both of our speakers, Lieutenant Mike Rozier and Director Carol Burkett.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. Got a short presentation on the heroin and the effects it's had on our community over the last 3 years. And I've got some national statistics too that remarkably matches what we have here in Orange County statistics-wise with the different drugs and the overdoses. Basically, what I said, that we're going over some of the heroin and overdose deaths from 2013 to 2015. My next slide is going to be a short clip from a local news media, and it kind of surmises what we've seen. It has some of the addicts talking about their addiction and what lengths they go to maintain and to get that addiction and to get that drug. So I'll go ahead and start that.
Now investigates what local agencies are doing to fight back, and I talked to former addicts to learn just how powerful this drug really is. New numbers show more than one person in Orlando dies every week from a heroin overdose.
It could be the guy who's in the desk next to you, the waitress who is serving you.
Bobby Hackett knows he sold heroin to pay for his addiction. He started shooting up the drug when Florida cracked down on pill mills.
The heroin is cheaper. It's a better high.
Hackett watched 3 close friends overdose and die, but kept using.
I've overdosed 5 times in my life. I would leave that hospital and get high as soon as I left.
Travis Dorr also had a friend die from heroin, but couldn't kick the habit.
I knew it had killed my friends. I said I would never do it. I did.
Dorr is from Daytona Beach, but says the City Beautiful is known as the place to buy the drug.
Even being locked up in other counties with people, that's what they talk about. Oh, we can go over here to Orlando and get it.
This is police video of a heroin deal in Orlando. OPD is using information from undercover informants like this to make arrests. And after noticing more heroin deaths in East Orange and South OBT, Sheriff Jerry Demings had deputies hand out flyers warning people about the potency.
If you're shooting up with heroin, it's akin to putting a gun to your head.
FDLE is also helping local agencies deal with the crisis. After an overdose or a suspicious death, the drugs are brought here to the FDLE lab where a chemist tests the drugs. And they tell us in the last year, the number of heroin cases coming in has doubled. FDLE analysts are mapping where the overdose deaths occur. This can help lead investigators to suppliers. Law enforcement says that's the best way to curb the problem. But Hackett and Dorr believe we also need more quality programs for addicts.
There's just not enough beds to house all the people that are out there.
Dorr and Hackett are now both in a treatment program at Fresh Start Ministries in College Park. They say the program has saved their lives. If you or someone you know is battling a drug addiction, we've put some resources for you in the web link section of WFTV.com.
As you can see, that's alarming. The lengths that they will go to get this euphoric high. They know it's a gamble that they're going to shoot up, they're going to get high, and they don't know if they're ever going to wake up. So you can see the pull that it has on an addict, and they'll go to at all lengths just to get that high, even though they know their friends have died or whatnot. I thought that was that was a good article there. Just a few facts about the heroin. It comes from the poppy plant. It can be injected, smoked, inhaled, snorting or sniffing. We see it a lot starting. The new user will start to sniff it and snort it. But as he doesn't get that high anymore, and his friends and his dealers, what happened is they'll end up starting to shoot it up. And what they do is they put it on a spoon, if you don't know. They add a little liquid to it, usually water. They heat it up, it becomes a liquid, and then they pull it out of the syringe and they stick it in their arm. That's normally how it starts out, by smoking or by snorting it, and then they inject it. Some of the effects it has: heroin overdoses involve a suppression of the breathing, pinpoint pupils, and euphoric high is what they're all after, is that high. Here's some national assessment from the national. I think there's over 1,000 respondents to this, and respondents I mean other police agencies, from 2010 or 2007 to 2015. But if you look at the, I can't see it, but the cocaine is the purple. That was the drug of choice back 6 or 7 years ago. And if you follow it across, you can see how it's slowly dropping. The methamphetamines probably, if you look at that, it's pretty much staying constant over the past 7 or 8 years. Marijuana, pretty much staying constant. Then the heroin, as you look, it's very low. It's up at 8% or so. And as it goes through the years, you can see the increase until 2015. These statistics are good through the middle of this year, so I'm sure that number on the right, the heroin number is going to go up. And then the controlled prescription drugs at the bottom of the purple, you can see how that kind of peaked with the pill mills, and then once the pill mills were shut down, how that's dropped off and the heroin dropped up, and that's where we see the correlation between the pill mills and the opiates and the heroin coming up. And like the addict was saying, it's a lot cheaper to do the heroin. Here's another national assessment summary. It just shows how much heroin has been seized over the past 5 or 6 years. As you can see, the amounts have gone up. And you know, the kilos are on the left, that's 2.2 pounds. So this year, or 2014, over 10,000 pounds of heroin was seized, compared to, you know, close to 5,000 4 or 5 years ago. All right, here's the Central Florida high-intensity drug trafficking areas. These are the counties that involve that: is Orange, Osceola, Hillsborough, Seminole, Brevard, Polk, and Volusia, and Pasco. It's self-explanatory. I really don't need to even say that we've over tripled what everybody else has in this Central Florida area as far as submissions from law enforcement. What it means is submissions is when somebody is arrested, the heroin is submitted into FDLE lab for processing to see to determine what drug it is. So that's what it means by submissions. And as you can see, we're way above the norm. Again, submissions, and this breaks it down into the years. as you can see, 2010, 11, we're pretty static, about 140 to 150. And then as the year progresses, 2012, 13, 14, and 573 so far this year. And that's through the end of August. And we're going to be well over probably close to 700. This is the narcotics-related overdoses. This is our top category. The bottom category is the deaths. This has heroin overdoses and deaths in it, into the slide. And as you can see, from January through August, you can see our numbers. We had a big spike in February. Looks like May, June, and July, also big spikes. But as you can see, this is all different kinds of narcotics deaths. My next slide is going to show you just primarily heroin, but heroin is embedded in these two slides too. As you can see, 263 overdose in 7 months, 8 months, and we have 73 deaths. Now this is just the heroin. We pulled the heroin out of the last one, and this is just the heroin. The overdoses, like I said, through probably the middle of August, we have 188 overdoses and 39 deaths so far. This is just another slide that illustrates, shows you in a different light the amount compared to the deaths and the overdoses. These are the arrests that we've made over the past 3 years. 2013, obviously 437. We're going up pretty quickly. 2014, 546, and so far this year, as the slide shows, at 8/31/15, we're at 447. So I'm sure we're going to surpass the 2014 totals. We got 4 months left in this calendar year. Here's some seizure numbers. Usually goes about $100 a gram. So as you can see in 2013, 14, and 15, how far we've gone up through in 2015. That's, again, halfway through the calendar year. Investigation that we've been doing over the past year and a half to 2 years on the south side of town. Just in August alone, we've done, since 2013 when I came in the unit, we've done probably close to 30 search warrants in there on the different condos, apartments. Just in August alone, when we saw the increase of the overdoses, we had narcotics unit and the sheriff's office. This isn't just us, it's the whole agency. 55 arrests were made. We had 35 trespass warnings, meaning people coming in there and having no business being on the property. They were kicked out. They were obviously the users wanting to get their fix. And then Sheriff Demings has deputies monitoring illegal activity. About the middle of the month, we occupied Blossom Park, which is this apartment complex, 24/7 for 2 weeks straight. And pretty much what that did, shut down the traffickers and dispersed them and moved them out. Now we're still in there every day for 7 or 8 hours. We're still moving them out. The drug sales in that apartment complex, according to my sources and my agents, has completely gone. But again, we've dispersed them out into the community, which is good for us because now we can focus on them more as smaller units than having them all at Blossom Park. So it's a good thing for us, and we can handle it a little easier than being in one spot. Again, just some information on the complex there. It's most of the units, there's 2 or 3 buildings that are totally condemned. The task force met in August to attack this problem. That's where the heroin task force came together. Mayor Jacobs directed installation of a mobile intervention team. When I said we took over the complex, the first 3 days when we occupied, we had an intervention team. We had a tent set up. We had signs all over the community. If you need help, come in here and get it. We had medical staff on site for 8 hours a day from 9 in the morning to roughly 5 in the afternoon, trying to give these people some help. So it was not only enforcement related, we tried to give some treatment and some education to some of the addicts in the area. Okay, this is a joint investigation that the narcotics unit worked about a year ago. It was a 7-month or so. It was on the east side of town, a total separate side of town. But during that investigation, we ended up at a mobile home park. These DTOs, they like to go to areas where they can take over, say, a condemned condo complex, a mobile home park, where they all can get in there and get embedded inside. But anyway, we had 6 search warrants were served. There are 18 physical arrests. Approximately 25,000 in currency was seized during those 6 search warrants. 3/4 of a pound of heroin. Most of it was packaged in individual baggies. When I say individual baggies, they're about the size of your pinky. If you can think of a small little Ziploc baggie that big, that's how they package it up. Then that's 1 shot per injection. And obviously, when you have drugs, you have guns. We had got 3 shotguns, 4 handguns, and a rifle. And also other drugs were also confiscated. Active investigations right now in the Orange County Narcotics Unit. We're working with DEA, MBI, ATF, and other local agencies, law enforcement agencies on heroin cases. And me sitting down with the captain and the other lieutenant, we determined that most of our work right now over the past year and a half has been all heroin related. It's like 80% of our time now is spent on working heroin investigations. And obviously we know there's other drug issues in Orange County that's kind of taking the back seat to this, but we need to get a handle on this, and that's why we're working so hard to try to do that. And this is just a few facts. Every life matters. We should strive to save each one. The circumstance in all these heroin deaths are different, but the theme is the same. Heroin is destroying our community and disrupting our families. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carol Burkett. I'm the director of the Drug Free Office. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope I didn't mess this up yet. So maybe I should let you all do this to get mine up. I want to thank Sheriff Demings for having me here today as I discuss some of the statistics that were shared at the Orange County Heroin Task Force when it kicked off in August, some national data, as well as looking at the local impact of the heroin issue in our community. So my first slide, heroin is illegal. I think we all know that, but it's highly addictive. It's easy to obtain, unfortunately, in Central Florida, and it's very cheap. You can see, as Lieutenant Rozier said, the numerous routes of administration. Intravenous use is probably the most popular because you get that immediate effect when the drug goes into the bloodstream. It's quicker than the other routes of administration, and people are looking for that quick high. And this last bullet, what the Journal of American Medical Association says is that people who became dependent or addicted to heroin began with prescription drugs. And certainly in Florida, we've seen that firsthand. Before our nation declared prescription drugs an epidemic in this country, we saw it in Florida. At the height of our problem in 2010, we were seeing 7 deaths a day due to prescription drug-related misuse and abuse. So it's probably not unusual that we're seeing the heroin problem that we're seeing here, there's a lot of correlation that we're seeing nationally with people, again, addicted to prescription drugs, opioids, painkillers, and looking for that alternative when those become unavailable. Heroin use has increased among most demographics. As we know, drugs know no boundaries. It doesn't discriminate. It goes on all levels, from adolescents to adults to older adults. What the CDC is looking at and what their data projects is that the biggest increase in users is that young adult population, 18 to 25, and primarily white males. I can tell you what we're seeing here. The same thing, but we also see a large Hispanic male population that is using as well. And this infographic I wanted to share with you from the CDC. It's from their vital stats that talks about today's heroin epidemic. Nearly all people who use heroin have used at least 1 to 3 other drugs. And you can see, I don't know if you can see that on the end, but those addicted to prescription painkillers are 40 times more likely to be addicted to heroin. So again, you can see that correlation of what we've seen in our country with the prescription drug epidemic. So what are the effects of heroin? what you can see and what we've heard from people who are addicted, who use it, is that initial rush, that euphoria that they get when using the drug. And then it's followed by having dry mouth, warm flushing of the skin. The slowed breathing, and that's probably what medical professionals will tell you, is the respiratory arrest is the immediate killer of those who have a heroin overdose that can lead to death. Nausea, vomiting, nothing pleasant is associated after the use of this drug, after several hours, so they're constantly looking for that next high. And some of the long-term effects, this really speaks to intravenous drug use. They developed collapsed veins, infection of the heart lining, the valves, lung complications that are associated with pneumonia, decreased liver function, abscesses, infections on the skin. And probably one of the most important pieces as well is the risk for HIV and hepatitis. That's a big risk for this population. Some of the withdrawal symptoms, when someone's addicted, is restlessness, muscle, bone pain, sweating, insomnia. I saw a video at a prescription drug summit in April, and someone who was addicted to heroin talked about the withdrawal, and it was the worst thing that they've gone through. They're not going to die from this, but they probably feel like they're going to. So you can see if people are addicted to heroin, they are constantly seeking that next high because they don't want to go through these severe withdrawal symptoms, and they can last anywhere from 24 to 48 hours after their last dose. As I mentioned, some of the risks for those that are intravenous drug use is HIV and hepatitis C, sharing of syringes, unprotected sex. Those are things that we know that comes with someone that's infected. But injection drug users are probably one of the highest groups that they're seeing now that's trending nationally for acquiring hepatitis C. The little article down below, the Indy Star, this happened in Scott County, Indiana in April of this year, where the CDC responded to that area when they had an outbreak of HIV. It was picked up by a very astute public health nurse in Scott County that saw in a very short period of time 11 cases for HIV. They typically have less than 5 for the whole year. So when they saw this, the bells went off and they called in all the resources. After looking at this and the population there, they were seeing over 155 cases of HIV, an outbreak in this and this is a small county, this isn't a large county. What they found was injection of the prescription drug Opana, which is again a very powerful painkiller. And probably what's disturbing is this was multi-generational with this use of intravenous drugs. They saw family members from adolescents to adults to community members, just 3 generations, all sharing, all using this drug, some using as many as 10 times a day. So the CDC and the folks in that area definitely declared this as an epidemic. So what do our local data trends tell us? Narcan, that's more the street name for that, it's naloxone, and it's known as Narcan. This is a drug that reverses the effects of an opioid overdose. And when it's administered in time, it can immediately reverse those effects. And this data is taken from our Orange County Emergency Medical Service providers, Orange County Fire Rescue, and Orlando Fire Department. The blue bar you can see is ingestion and poisoning. So that's when they've been on a case where they think that it's been an opioid. They do CPR and then they will administer Narcan. And you can see it's steady with 1,300, almost 1,400 Narcan administrations in 2014. And then Orange County Fire Rescue started to go back through their cases and look where they've documented heroin, and that's by witnesses there, or they've seen evidence, needles, baggies, things that Lieutenant Rozier mentioned that heroin use was probably used by that person they're responding to, and you can see that's increased from 19 in 2012 to 86 in 2014. With only 3 months of data for 2015, we're already at 170 Narcan administrations and 38 documented heroin cases where they've used this. And we look at heroin-related ER admissions. This is just one hospital system, so not the full picture of our county, but certainly a snapshot of what we're seeing and what physicians are seeing. You can see, again, the dramatic increase in 2012. There were 24 heroin-related ER admissions, and it went up to 109 in 2014. And talking to Dr. Thundale, who I worked with on these slides, he's an ER doc and a medical toxicologist, he feels this number is probably higher, that a lot goes underreported, or heroin in the primary diagnosis. So, but from what we're seeing with primary diagnosis of heroin overdose, 109 admissions, and just for the first 3 months, again, of 2015, we've already had 58 heroin-related admissions. And for the folks coming in, for those 3 years, you can see predominantly it's males, about 178 males over that 3-year period, and 59 females, but females is a growing population with this drug. We also see the age group. As we mentioned, the CDC, one of the populations they're really focusing on is that 18 to 25, and you can see that same story here with this one hospital system. The greatest increase is 18 to 30, but take a look at the 46 to 55. You see that increase start to go up again, and that is a trend that others are seeing, is that age group using this drug as well. And then with that, what's the cost of care? You can see in 2012 it was about $370,000, and in 2014 we were over $1 million for those 109 that were admitted. And I can tell you from this one hospital system, only 10% of that cost is actually reimbursed. So a big impact there as well. Heroin-related deaths, probably just the tip of the iceberg, because we know hundreds are using, but across the nation, heroin overdoses have nearly quadrupled when you look at the last decade. And for us in Florida, from 2012, we saw 108. 2013, we went to 199, about a 70% increase. And looking at 2014, for the first 6 months reported 156 heroin-related deaths, but if we extrapolate that out to the end of 2014, we could see results as high as 312. For our District 9, when you look at accidental drug overdose deaths, you can see the yellow bar on the end, that is prescription drugs, and we see a steady decline in that from 98 accidental drug overdoses with prescription drugs to 62 in 2014. But if you look at that blue bar, what you see 2012 and 2013 remain constant, and that was 16 each year for heroin only, that was the cause of death. But you see the dramatic spike in that in 2014 to 43 deaths that was heroin only. You don't see a decline, you only see an increase for prescription drugs and illicit drugs. So that really speaks to what the CDC said about multiple drug use as well. And then when we look at District 9, and that is Orange and Osceola County, and heroin-related deaths, all those deaths related to heroin, you can see we went from 26 in 2012 to 90 in 2014. So we've had a large increase, about an 84% increase in the number of heroin-related deaths. That blue bar shows the number of males, and the red bar is the females that's growing. So I think we have enough time for the video. I have a short video that I wanted to share with you. It's from the Washington Post. I got permission for them, and they're actually pleased to know that we're going to be getting this out. It's called Heroin Resurgence and the Very Tragic Consequences of One Family, David McCarthy. I might need to click it again. There we go.
It just was a nightmare.
I was totally unaware of what he was doing.
We never dreamed that they were doing this. We never dreamed there was a problem. And all of a sudden, we're finding that it's an epidemic.
I mean, even as I think about it now, it just still seems unreal.
Love you guys. See you soon.
Heroin is just the end of the road. Then very few people can turn around from it.
I can't recall when I met him for the first time. When you know somebody for that many years, you kind of lose sight of your first memories of them. And Dave was a very smart person. He didn't fit the stereotype of what a drug addict would be.
David was very funny, very warm. I think he wanted to be older than he was. He wasn't a picture of any hard drug use to me.
Addiction is like an iceberg. What somebody lets you know about their problems with drugs or alcohol is really a very, very tiny piece of what actually is going on.
This picture is, God, 10 years old. It was a Sugarloaf book that we got for each of the boys. When I first started to notice something was actually several years after David had been living here. It wasn't right away. I think the introduction to cocaine, heroin started probably a year or two after high school.
And that's when we knew there was something more going on than we really ever dreamed.
We got him into a detox program that was available here locally. So we thought that things were going in a good direction. We thought that he was past kind of a shaky point.
He seemed very involved and focused and in the world. That's the only way I could describe it. When he was doing drugs, he was there, but he wasn't there. And you could tell when he was there.
This is my new iPod camera. I hope you can hear me and see me. Yeah.
Dave's job ended on Columbus Day weekend. He came down right after that. He was here for a few days, and that's when he died. He died right here, right upstairs.
He went to his room and he overdosed. And Kevin didn't know. You know, he had gone to bed. And he got up in the morning and went to work.
I actually left work early that day, and I'm kind of getting things ready for dinner, and I hear a noise.
Heard the dog scratching in the room. His dog. It went upstairs.
As I'm walking up the stairs, the whining's continuing. I open the door, and there was Dave.
So he had died the night before. He called Charles, my oldest son, and told him to tell me.
I think we didn't want to believe what was really happening. You know, you just think that they're going to outgrow this, or it's not my kid, you know, he wouldn't do this. And so you kind of find excuses for things, which I think we totally did, and we were just totally stupid about a lot of stuff.
You always think that your friend's not going to die. I mean, you would read that in the paper about somebody else, you know. But it's absolutely true that, you know, your best friends die if they're doing that.
I had all my friends up this last night, and they all cleaned the condo while I was at work. It was sweet. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys.
I think how short his life was, and how long my life is. And I'm only sorry that he misses out.
It's a hard video to watch, but a very tragic consequence to what is a deadly drug. It's a killer, and you saw this young man and the parents, what they go through. Such a young life lost so much potential that didn't have to happen. I'm going to wrap up with a few more slides just to talk to you about the Orange County Heroin Task Force. Mayor Jacobs and Sheriff Demings created this task force and held their first meeting on August 17th. And I know when Sheriff Demings spoke at the press conference kicking this off, he said within the last week they'd already had 11 heroin overdoses. So it's very apparent here that Orange County, Central Florida, it's an impact that it's affecting all of us. The sheriff and mayor are joined by 21 key community leaders that provide their expertise from various fields of study, and they are meeting over the next 6 months. We've already had 2 meetings of the full task force. Some of the things they're looking at, obviously preventing heroin use and overdose deaths through gathering information, looking at local data trends, trafficking trends, arrests, looking at that ER data, treatment admissions, and I can tell you they're seeing the same trends that we're seeing throughout the other statistics that I showed you. More people coming in that were there maybe for prescription drug addiction are now seeing heroin addiction. And then looking at best practices across the country, because what we're facing now, other cities and counties have been addressing for the last couple of years as it's impacted their area. We do have 4 subcommittees that are working diligently. They've held their first meeting, getting ready for the next one in the areas of law enforcement, education and prevention, healthcare and treatment. And this is a way each of us can get involved. There's an opportunity. Community members can sit at these meetings, can add their input, their expertise, and just gain knowledge about this problem so we can all make an impact. The areas of discussion that they're looking at, each subcommittee across the board is looking at data collection. That's apparent as we look at trends and patterns in the community is to have the right data. Prevention is key. So the more information we can get out, certainly to prevent any use, but then also letting people know, just like Sheriff Demings and his deputies were saturating areas where they knew there was a lot of heroin use with information on how deadly this drug is. Expanding the use of naloxone, Narcan is one of the objectives that they're looking at. And at-risk populations, what research shows you is there's 3 pivotal areas that we could impact this. With people coming out of treatment, there's a lot of time for relapse occasions where that occurs, so maybe administration of Narcan. This can be written now by a physician in Florida with legislation that was passed earlier this year. People coming out of jails, that's another at-risk population. If they've withdrawn from heroin in the jail, they're likely to go back, especially if they're going back in the same environment to use again. So it's an opportunity to intervene. And then emergency rooms. They can't keep them there very long. They come in, they're administered Narcan on the way there by EMS. They keep them anywhere from, I think, 2 to 4 hours in the ERs, but then another opportunity again for that physician to have that discussion with them. So that is the end of my presentation. And again, I just want to thank the sheriff for having me here to share with you all some of the information that the Orange County Heroin Task Force is looking at.
All right, it's very somber information. Thank you very much, Director Burkett, and thank you very much, Mike Rogier, also from the Sheriff's Office. Really appreciate that and good information. Ladies and gentlemen, please take this information back to your neighborhoods, to your churches, mosques, synagogues, and share what's going on in the county so we can help prevent some of these things that are taking place in our community. We want to thank everyone that contributed to make this year's Sheriff's Crime Summit such a success. The room is full. We appreciate that. We would especially like to thank the Rosen Center Hotel for providing this venue for this summit. Many of the businesses financially supported this event, and I want to recognize them on behalf of Sheriff Demings for the great work they're doing to help us get the word out in our community. Ability Rehabilitation and Sports Medicine, Star and Shield, Centricare, Wawa, Darden, ISS, Orange TV, the Orlando Federal Credit Union, Humana, Aflac, Cigna, Colonial Life. Are any persons here from those organizations? If you're here as a sponsor, If you came and you helped support, I see a few hands going up in the audience. Let's thank those sponsors who helped make this a successful summit. Thank you so much.